welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers, and you are in Season 5 of Wrestling at Random, where the theme is more wrestling than ever. Talked about it, 19,000 some odd episodes, or wrestling shows, we should say, pay-per-views, TV shows, major events, everything in between in the randomizer this season. Probably upwards of 50 or 60,000 hours of wrestling. It's pulled in this season a lot of weird stuff, some older stuff, some 70s, some 80s stuff. Here, the randomizer reminds everybody that, yes, mainstream modern American professional wrestling, quote unquote, exists as well. It pulls WWF No Mercy 2003. I don't think I've ever seen this show, but we watched it. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, you mentioned it. We fire up the randomizer every week. It goes through, it will randomly choose something to watch. It could be a weekly television show, could be a pay-per-view, could be anything wrestling related. We will parachute in, we will watch it, try to catch up and see what's going on. And like you mentioned, this one takes us 20 years ago, which is crazy to think that this happened 20 years ago, because I watched almost every show at this point in time. In 2003, I was watching a lot of the WWE product, and No Mercy taking place October 19th, 2003. And this is a pay-per-view event. This is a SmackDown Presents No Mercy pay-per-view event. So this is during the brand split here, where Raw and SmackDown had separate rosters, separate championships, and they were doing their own separate pay-per-views. We've got a few shows in the back catalog from 2003 also. So you can go through, search our back catalog here of free episodes from 2003. One of those being WrestleMania 19. That took place March of 2003. I was in attendance. We talk about that. If you do listen to it, listen to both parts of that episode. Tremendous. Not just part one. Listen to part two as well. Solid stuff.
Yeah, we should report. I don't know how often we've talked about in recent times your frustration at how much lower the listenership was for part one of the WrestleMania 19 show versus part two. Over the years, that gap has closed considerably to a reasonable number.
It's reasonable, but it shouldn't. How is it not equal? I will never understand. That's completely insane. But no, go and listen to those. And listen to all of the 2003 content. There's actually quite a few shows that we pulled from this era, and it's an interesting time here, as you know, we're still in the Vince McMahon is the top heel. This is still going on. You know, this
firmly entrenched.
Yeah, and this goes back to Austin McMahon in 96, 97, right?
It goes back to the end, basically right after the Montreal Screwjob. Like, we're 6 years basically into the entirety of the promotion being built around Vince McMahon as the heel. The entirety of the promotion, basically, once the Austin story was done, being built around McMahon family squabbles. You think back to the WrestleMania where you had 4 different McMahons in the corners.
That was WrestleMania 2000 in WrestleMania 16. Yeah.
In the main event, each with a different wrestler. And here we're in 2003, and this show, among other things, is built around Vince McMahon versus his daughter Stephanie in an I Quit match that is no holds barred.
Yes, that's how the show opens. We open with a video package, a Vince and Stephanie video package, and this is where I realize they're having a match. I'm like, oh, Jesus. The tremendous production. Like, their post-production on these video packages are tremendous. We just parachuted in. I'm immediately caught up in 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Tremendous job.
Yeah, they do a great job of, like, this is something I have no interest in watching. Vince McMahon versus Stephanie McMahon in an I Quit no holds barred match. But at the very least, I know and understand through this sort of more aesthetic video package and then the more chronological one later, I will understand everything that led to this, and it's done in the very high production level you come to expect from the WWF. We also have some video clips leading us to know that it's going to be Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar in one of the other main events on this show.
That's the big difference here in the 20 years from when this took place to current day WWE product is when it comes to video packages, you will get a video package for every single thing on a modern WWE show. Too many. There's too much of a good thing. You can't have birthday cake every day.
Yes, you can.
And we are here. They have video packages for the Vince and Stephanie thing, the Brock and Undertaker thing, and that's it. We don't get bogged down with tons and tons of video packages slowing down the show. We go. It's the announcer's job to catch you up. Sometimes they have to do a podcast during a match and to catch you up, but they catch you up nonetheless.
And the announcers, we should mention, you talked about it being a SmackDown exclusive show. It is the SmackDown announce team of Michael Cole and Taz. And this is where I remember that Taz in this era, he's the only guy that somehow was able to make Michael Cole a watchable, not super grating and annoying play-by-play guy. We've talked about it before, that wacky Australia videotape, pay-per-view, whatever it was.
Yes.
Like
global
everybody
warning.
Global warning.
Yes,
the global warning tour. Everybody else through the years that has been paired with Michael Cole that I've heard on shows for this podcast, it's been awful. But for whatever reason, the chemistry of Michael Cole and Taz worked, and Taz was able to pull something out of Cole that actually made him feel like a credible announcer with gravitas instead of a guy play acting, the outrage of a babyface announcer.
The show takes place in Baltimore, Maryland. This was not a sold-out show. The paid attendance was slightly less than 9,000. They paid $500,000 in a building that was seated for 12,000. So,
it's the first Mariner Arena, I believe. It's the old Baltimore Arena, correct? Or Great American Bash 90 and so many other events. I know Mike Sempervive attended many an event at the old Baltimore Arena. It looks cool. Like visually, it's cool because while it's not sold out, it's pretty full. And it actually isn't just your normal round modern arena. It almost visually has more of the vibe of like a Boston Garden where it's sort of everything is squared off rather than rounded. It looks cool.
We open the show with the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. The Cruiserweight champion is Tajiri, and Tajiri is defending against Rey Mysterio.
Yes.
Great opener.
It's a Cruiserweight match opening a WWF pay-per-view, but given the fact that Rey is massively over and Tajiri had gotten over, this should be a Cruiserweight title match that actually has crowd heat, which is the rarest of the rare in the WWF during this time period.
We get a recap that Tajiri's been spraying mist all over the place, and he took out Nydia and Jamie Noble with the black mist.
Which again takes me back to the Nydia, Jamie Noble, very heartwarming, out of character segment that we had on the Global Warning Tour.
Yeah. So this is a great opener. Tajiri working the arm of Rey. Great strikes as always from Tajiri. Rey fights back, hits a tornado DDT off the top for a 2 count. Rey uses his legs to pull Tajiri out to the floor, and then Rey does a Rana off the apron onto the floor. Great stuff.
Yeah.
We're off to the races.
Rey looks fantastic here. Everything Tajiri does is super crisp. You think back to Tajiri and Super Crazy in ECW. You think, oh well, maybe this will really work too, and it did. It had a different pace, a different feel than your normal WWF match, which most of the time would lose the crowd. But here, because how over both these guys are, particularly Rey as a babyface, things that the crowd would normally just not have interest in and sort of just sit idly by, they're into, mostly because they're waiting for and they're buying the teases of Rey hitting the 619. That move and the idea of a guy even in position to get hit with the 619 is so ridiculously over during this time period.
It absolutely was. Back inside, Tajiri tries to throw Rey outside. He counters with a 619 to the midsection of Tajiri. Mysterio with a springboard, but he gets caught in an awesome power bomb by Tajiri. This is a great 2 count and a great near fall.
Absolutely.
Tajiri throws Ray into the corner, but he leaps to the top rope and hits a moonsault and gets a long 2 count. Tajiri misses his big buzzsaw kick, his roundhouse kick there, but Mysterio hits the 619. Tajiri takes an awesome bump for the 619. And then Mysterio goes for the springboard Rana, where he hooks the legs. It's called the West Coast Pop. But as he hits it, someone hits the ring. And someone else is jumping the rail at ringside.
Several someones hit the ring. If I'm not mistaken, it was Jimmy Yang, and yes. I can't remember the other guys. Was it Ryan Sakuda?
You nailed it. It is Ryan Sakuda and Jimmy Yang. They are the 2 guys.
It was a short-lived attempt. I believe the idea was that they didn't call them Yakuza members, but that was the idea.
Exactly. Yep.
And it was dropped pretty quickly. It was shot in a way that didn't look like it was planned, even though it obviously was. WWF doesn't usually do those things well. They shot it in a way that it worked. However, the amount of times that Michael Cole and Taz kept talking about it being a fan. And then the fact that we got replays afterwards immediately told you this is fake. This isn't a fan. This leads directly to the finish as Tajiri hits a buzzsaw kick and gets the win. The match, the actual content of the match was great.
It was great.
It was one of the closest outside of Taka and Great Sasuke. It was one of the closest cruiserweight title matches in terms of feel to what you get opening the WCW pay-per-views. We talk about all the time, those great cruiserweight title matches setting the tone. But then the finish was such a WWE finish that you immediately knew, yeah, this is still a WWF show.
Josh Matthews interviews Vince in the back. Vince says, "How am I feeling? That is a stupid question." He said, "It's personal. This is personal business. If anyone interferes in his match, they will be fired." We're told that the Brock Lesnar and Undertaker match is going to be a biker chain match, and we get a full tale of the tape.
Yeah, we get tale of the tape, which is funny because it's like a sporting event, but then it's for a biker chain match. And whatever your thoughts are on what a biker chain match is, when you get to it, it won't be that. We'll just say it feels like maybe this was during that like 2-week time period when Vince Russo came back. There's a certain implement other than a chain involved, but we'll get to that later. Instead, we now have the A-Train coming out. So he's not Prince Albert. He's not the hip-hop hippo. Here he's short tights and hairy back version of the A-Train. They flash to a sign in the crowd which says Ape Train, which is one of the more ridiculous dad joke level signs we've seen. Even funnier because it was held by a small child, or a child, I should say, not a small child. His opponent, oh God, it's Chris Benoit.
Loud shave your back chants, and a lot of A-Train offense in this match. Benoit's bleeding from the mouth. This match went way longer than you think it would. A-Train at one point goes for a press slam, and he loses him, and Benoit falls face first. This was brutal.
Face and head first, and not just onto the mat, but onto a chair that had been brought into the ring. This is one of those really weird wrestling synchronicity moments. I'm going to flash back to, remember when Steve Austin hit the sit-out tombstone and broke Masahiro Chono's neck in Japan? And then just a few years later, Owen Hart was wrestling Steve Austin and did the sit-out tombstone piledriver and broke Steve Austin's neck. Here, we see, as you mentioned, Chris Benoit get press slammed and get dropped at a horrible angle, head and neck first, onto a steel chair. It immediately made me think of when Chris Benoit dropped Sabu head first in ECW in the exact same way, the exact same angle, breaking Sabu's neck. Just weird wrestling synchronicity. Shocking that the match wasn't stopped. This was horrifying.
Absolutely was. And Benoit, he makes a comeback. He hits rolling Germans. He gets cut off again. Benoit makes another comeback, and he puts on a sharpshooter for the win. Benoit made this match entertaining, and he wins with the sharpshooter here as a tribute because Stu Hart had just passed away. And so winning with the sharpshooter was his tribute to Stu Hart.
Yeah. I mean, the match was fine. It meandered. It had a weird pace and just vibe to it because there were just long stretches where one guy would throw some strikes, another guy would throw some strikes, but it wasn't like a back and forth duel. It just went a long time without really a lot of direction until sort of the finish. It felt like something that could have been 5 or 6 minutes and was significantly longer than that.
Heidenreich is in the back and he's choking Shannon Moore, and Matt Hardy talks him down. I don't know what they're talking about here.
Yeah, some sort of tryout tape was involved. I don't know. This was bad. It was unnecessary. We then go back to the ring, and here comes Zach Gowen. Yes, that Zach Gowen, wearing a ripped up t-shirt that says Dare to Defy. He is looking for his first win as a contracted WWE superstar, taking on version 1, the Sensei of Magnitude, Matt Hardy. The funniest thing here, we talk about signs of the times on shows. This was V1 Matt Hardy. He comes out to the ring, and the screen at this point goes to what's supposed to look like internet video.
It's supposed to look like a real player. It's like a real player. Yeah.
So they've got the like fake affected like pixelization and frame rate dropping. When his entrance starts, you see the video, there's like the dial-up tone sound. Like, this is so, again, a sign of the times that if you showed a kid now, this would be like, what is this video effect? Why is this happening?
Matt Hardy is taking on Zach Gowen, who is a one-legged wrestler. So he comes out with a prosthetic leg that also has a wrestling boot on it. And then he takes the prosthetic leg off and he proceeds to wrestle with one leg. Now, he's very skinny. He's not like he's not like a wrestler who's missing a leg. He's like a normal kid who's missing a leg in there with professional wrestlers. So it's always weird when he gets offense on guys. It's one of those like if you're not overly wowed with the things he can do on one leg athletically, you can immediately have trouble suspending your disbelief when you watch him in the ring.
Yeah, certain guys selling for him always comes across or just comes off as a little bit weird. What he's able to do on one leg is incredible. It's unbelievably visually impressive. If you've never seen him before, you can't really formulate in your mind what it looks like. He's able to, hit a one-legged drop kick, or he's able to hop up, to the top rope and then hit a tope with only one leg. Like, what he does is incredible. But it does, like you said, stretch the bounds of what you can believe, particularly when he's in there with the bigger guy. In here with Matt Hardy, it's a little bit easier to buy, but sometimes it's not.
So Hardy dominates the match until he misses a moonsault, and then Zach Gowen jumps to the top. He does a flip off the top, wiping out Hardy on the floor. So it's pretty cool to do how he does a springboard onto like his shin.
Yes.
And then takes it out to the floor. Gowen then hits a top rope moonsault, gets the pin. This was his first WWE victory.
Yes, and he was very over. I always think about, and we see in the video feature, the one thing I remember from his run was getting thrown down the stairs by Brock Lesnar in one of the most brutal looking attacks ever in WWF history. But yeah, he was over. And again, like he was very impressive. It's hard to wrap your mind around the stuff he was able to do. It was a short window of time where he had his life together enough to be able to be in a spot like this, but it was entertaining.
What a horrendous theme song. This theme song is terrible. And it's like bad to where like, I'm not even going to go back and record it to play it underneath us right now as I'm talking about it. I'm not going to do it. It's not good. It's very bad. And it's like, it's the most low effort bad that you.
It's like Ultimate Warrior's entrance music slowed down by half with terrible early 2000s wannabe like Three Doors Down type of vocals.
Yes, it's trying to be a VH1 song in 2003. It's trying to be a Creed song, and it's awful.
The WWE theme song vibe in this era is really funny because it tells you if you're supposed to care about a guy or not. Some guys have like music that sounds like wrestling music or sounds like a real song, and then you've got this Zach Gowen music, or in the next match, the Bashams. I have never heard wrestlers have entrance music that more loudly screams, "Don't care about us," than this. They would be better off being guys already in the ring with no entrance or entrance music than they were here with this entrance.
Before we get to the Bashams, we did have a segment backstage where Linda McMahon is meeting with Vince McMahon, and she begs Vince not to go through with this match. And she says, quote, "For 37 years, I have turned my head to your past transgressions. With 2023 eyes, truer words have never been spoken by Linda."
Yeah, she's a terrible actor, but she wasn't acting here. She was speaking the truth.
Vince changes the rules here at this point and says that he can win by submission only in the I Quit match, but Stephanie can win by pin or submission. And the match will remain no holds barred. Smart move. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, that was his response to Linda asking him to call the match off. He said, "I'm not going to do that, but to show that I'm a good guy and as a token of good faith, I will allow Stephanie several different ways to win."
You mentioned the Basham brothers. They're out next. Doug and Danny Basham, also known as Doug Basham and the Damager from OVW. Their call-up is one of the most legendary things because they were the top feud in OVW, a multi-year blood feud between Doug Basham and the Damager. And then they get called up and put into a brother tag team in the middle before they've had their big main event blow-off matches. During the build to that, they get called up as brothers, and Jim Cornette having to scramble as booker of OVW at the time to justify on his TV why these guys who hate each other and are in a blood feud are actually brothers, and they're actually teaming up on SmackDown. Just amazing, amazing stuff that Jim Cornette had to deal with in his time as OVW booker. But
well, the most egregious aspect of it was that they called them up in the middle of all that, and then they were just almost immediately geeks. Mm-hmm. Like, you didn't call them up to do a mega push. You called them up, and it was clear immediately that they were never going to be anything other than a mid-card tag team at absolute best.
And if you're watching the series called The Wrestlers on Netflix in 2023, Doug Basham is there. He's on that show as an OVW trainer. So this is the Doug Basham we're talking about in this match. Doug and Danny Basham taking on the APA, Farouk and Bradshaw. And Farouk, this match was awful.
There's nothing to say about this match other than Bradshaw looked like he may have had assistance with his physique. He was in far better shape than I would have expected.
Farouk was supposed to miss a clothesline on Danny and hit the ref instead, but someone was way out of position. It looked horribly bad to the point where fans started booing this loudly. The ref eventually is bumped here, and Shaniqua, who's Linda Miles from Tough Enough as a dominatrix character, she comes out and hits Bradshaw with a weapon. The Bashams get the pin. After the match, it's revealed that she was out because of a boob job, and they were doing jokes about how the injury angle that took her out with Bradshaw's clothesline caused her boobs to swell up, and that's why she is how she is now. WWE comedy of 2003.
Ugh, terrible stuff. The only thing worse than that was whatever Doug Basham's like jumping inverted famouser finisher was. Talk about a geek finisher. God.
They break down the keys to victory in the title match later. Undertaker's keys to victory. Number 1, throwing hands. Number 2, veteran instincts. And number 3, get the chain.
I was just so disappointed that it didn't say pound and ground.
We'll get there.
Vintage Michael Cole.
Brock's keys to victory. Grappler Game. Number 2, Controlled Anger. And number 3, Get the Chain also.
I'm a little bit disappointed that it's Controlled Anger. We could have had Kofi Kingston in this match, and it could have been, was it Controlled Frenzy? Isn't that what he called Kofi Kingston?
We get a tremendous Stephanie video package. We see Vince is disappointed in her as GM of SmackDown. Vince made out with Sable during this video package. And all I can think of is Vince McMahon is so good at being Vince, the evil wrestling character. Just tremendous. He's so good at it.
Oh, he's great at it. It did not take a lot of work or acting or stretching to be able to do that. He's great at it. But my God, like the opening video package and this one, very uncomfortable to watch. You know, just the whole story of this, you know, of it's just very uncomfortable. And the match itself, we'll get to it. Everybody played their part very well, but it's not something I have any desire to watch. A big, long, drawn-out storyline of a dad beating the shit out of his daughter. Okay.
Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Newsletter, reports that the WWE was expected to pay a $2,000 fine to the Maryland State Athletic Commission regarding the Vince versus Stephanie match. The commission contacted WWE, informed them that man versus women matches are against bylaws and are subject to a maximum $2,000 fine. WWE's response was, "Who do we make the check out to?" And this was extra funny because in 1991, at the most infamous WCW Baltimore Bash that year, a cage match with Rick Steiner and Missy Hyatt versus Arn Anderson and Paul E. Dangerously. That was scheduled, and they ended up having to work an angle where Dick Murdoch carried Hyatt from the ring before the bout started and wound up doing a very short final match to cap off an incredibly bad pay-per-view, among one of the worst in history, when the commission at the time informed WCW, and there was nothing about a fine, simply you can't do the match as advertised. So WCW screwed out of that match. WWE just had to pay a fine.
I vividly remember that match and how weird it was, how bad that pay-per-view was, but particularly that match. I had no idea that that was the story behind why that went down the way it did.
We go to the I Quit match. Stephanie McMahon, with her mother Linda McMahon accompanying her to the ring, taking on Vince McMahon, accompanied by his girlfriend Sable.
We should have mentioned the stakes for this match. It's an I Quit match, but the stakes are that if Vince wins, Stephanie is no longer the general manager of SmackDown. If Stephanie wins, Vince McMahon has to resign from the WWF entirely. So if you didn't already know what the finish was going to be, you do now.
And as we've talked about, Stephanie can win via submission or pinfall. Vince can only win via submission. Vince comes out and he is jacked. He is 58 years old here, and all I could think to myself was, steroids work.
Yes, and wellness policies, if they were in place, did not apply to the owner of the company. We've used the phrase old man jacked before. That doesn't even come close to describing what Vince McMahon looks like here. He looks like one of those muscle suits, but in real life.
So the match begins, and Stephanie has her back turned, and Vince cheap shots her from behind, starts throwing her around the ring, and the crowd is into this. They are here for this match, as you could tell by all the video packages. This was built up as, if not the main event, one of the premier TV time dedicated to storylines.
As it tends to happen when it's the owner of the company and his family in a storyline. The crowd is buzzing, but to me, like, it's an uncomfortable buzz.
Yes.
Like the crowd reaction to this match has several phases or chapters throughout, and here, like, people are into it, but they're like, into it, but they don't know if it's okay that they are, is the way I would describe it. I feel incredibly uncomfortable watching this. This is just, yeah, I mean, we talked about it a few minutes ago. Everyone is great at their roles in this, with the exception of Linda, who is just not human as far as conveying emotion. But it's one of those things I don't think I ever needed to actually see.
Vince is throwing shoulders in the corner to Stephanie, and Sable even gets a slap in. Linda's chasing Sable around ringside until Vince cuts Linda off. He's standing in between Sable and Linda, and this allows Stephanie to recover. She ends up fighting back. She hits some kicks. She hits Vince with a clothesline. And Vince ends up getting Stephanie down, puts on a half crab. And he's choking her. And she ends up gouging the eyes of Vince to escape.
Yeah, he's putting a bad mouth on her while he's got her in the half Boston. Stephanie is screaming as Linda tries to pull her to the ropes. This is where I noted, like, man, this is just uncomfortable to watch. Father versus daughter, the level of pain that they're trying to show you. I don't know. It's just a weird vibe. I did enjoy Vince with a hair mare on Stephanie early on in the match. I was amused by that. Vince locks on a surfboard, and Michael Cole, we talked about it. Like, Michael Cole usually has a real hard time conveying real emotion. Like, he just seems like a guy play acting the disgusted babyface announcer. Here, he's calling Vince McMahon satanic and demonic, and it feels like he believes this with every fiber of his being. Cole's doing a great job here.
So Sable is on the apron, and she's got a pipe, but Linda pulls her off the apron. Vince grabs Linda, who slaps Vince, and Vince turns around into a low blow. And he gets hit with a low blow using the pipe, and Stephanie gets a roll up for a long 2 count. This was a good near fall, and people are cheering hard for Stephanie to get the win here. And yeah, this is where it was huge to add the pinfall stip, because now you can have some near falls in here.
Yes, and make it more believable that Stephanie could actually win. This was also where the crowd went from like uncomfortable buzzing to really getting into this as a pro wrestling match, as absurd as it was. Like you said, that whole sequence with the slap from Linda, the low blow from Stephanie, and then the pipe shot low blow, that near fall was insane. The people bought it. They were going nuts. Stephanie with the pipe as Vince is begging off is just tremendous theater. He runs at her and she hits him in the stomach, then the back with the pipe, then a huge uppercut with the pipe, goes to the second rope, hits him with the pipe again. Vince gets his foot on the rope, which is a great near fall, a great reaction. Tremendous. But again, begs the question, in a no disqualification match like this, why are there rope breaks on pinfalls? That drives me crazy. It's like when you get a tag team match, like a tag team cage match that has tags. It isn't a tornado tag. What are we doing here?
Sable's on the apron again. Stephanie goes after Sable. Vince grabs her. Stephanie slips behind, rams Vince into Sable, and then she hits a bulldog and gets another 2 count. These near falls, because it's playing off of all the tropes of the finishes of the time. Yes. And so it was awesome. They played all the hits, and they all resulted in great near falls. And Vince selling is tremendous. He's such a unique performer, and watching him sell as well as when he's on offense and talking trash, it's just he's so good at doing what needs to be done here, and he's just a tremendous character, always has been.
He's a horrendous fundamental wrestler. Like,
totally terrible fundamental wrestler. Yes. It's
fascinating because everything he does looks physically awful, but he clearly has like a top tier wrestling IQ as far as what to do and when to do it and how to structure things to get crowd reactions. He just has no capability to the physical execution of those things. It makes for a really unique, interesting watch whenever he's in one of these big matches.
Yeah, and he's one of the few guys that can overcome it with sheer charisma and doing all of the other things.
It's funny because it's in some ways this is going to sound like a strange comparison, but the only guy that I can compare him to as a wrestler is John Cena. In that
Sure.
John Cena, we've talked about it time and time again. I've never seen a worse wrestler have more great matches than John Cena.
I think that's the difference in the comparison is that like John Cena can be in great matches.
Yes.
Vince, I don't think has ever been in what you would consider a great match. He's a
No,
great performer in passable matches.
He can have highly entertaining smoke and mirrors matches, which really
Yes.
the expectation couldn't be any more considering how old he is and the fact that he's not a full-time guy. But like Cena's the full-time wrestler version of that in that
Sure.
he's jacked. He looks like he should be athletic. But when he's out there, it looks like the left arm doesn't know what the right foot's doing, and and on and on and on, and yet still it ends up working in the end.
We'll get more into John Cena in the next match.
We will.
Back to this match here after that, another great near fall. Stephanie's got the pipe again, but Vince grabs her by the throat and just throws her down. Vince hits Stephanie in the stomach with the pipe. He's choking her with the pipe. And here he's got crazy Vince facials as he's trying to choke out Stephanie. Linda,
his daughter. This is uncomfortable. This is very uncomfortable. As entertaining as everyone is, again, when you're just sitting here watching it, you're like, oh God, I hope no one walks into the room. And if I could have an out of body experience and I could walk in the room onto, myself watching this, I would be worried. I would be embarrassed for myself.
Linda has seen enough as well, and she throws in the towel as Stephanie was passing out. So Vince is your winner. After the match, Vince throws Linda down as he walks out with Sable. Everyone did their part tremendously. This, in real life, meant Stephanie could go away for a while, have her real wedding and honeymoon, and then have a storyline triumphant return as a general manager and beyond.
Yeah, the best way I would describe this match is about as far from the type of professional wrestling that I have any interest in actually watching, yet it was masterfully executed by everyone involved, none of which is actually a full-time trained professional wrestler. So from that perspective, good job.
Kurt Angle versus John Cena. So we're in the year 2003. So Kurt Angle was the WWE champion at the beginning of this year. He lost the title to Brock at WrestleMania, and here Kurt Angle taking on John Cena. This is Kurt Angle is he's still he's still got a ton of injuries, but man, he's still peak Kurt Angle, and he's taking on a very young, very green John Cena. This is peak basic thugonomics version of John Cena here. So very early in the John Cena I'm now a rapper career.
Yeah, exactly. It's not earliest John Cena, which was John Cena just out in his regular wrestling trunks, wrestling Kurt Angle, on his first show, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's early on in the basic thugonomics heel John Cena era, which throws you for a loop because physically and gear-wise, it's the same stuff that he would wear as, the maybe too triumphant babyface for so long. So that kind of throws you off. Kurt Angle, it throws me off to see him as just your classic white bread babyface during this era, because I still think of him in the WWF as the comedic heel who could kill you. From a fashion corner standpoint, Kurt Angle is wearing what is maybe my least favorite wrestling fabric of all time. It's that rubbery singlet like you would see sometimes Scott Steiner wear in peak Steiner Brothers era. It never looks good, particularly when it's a bright color. This is red. Scott Steiner to wear the pink. It leaves far too little to the imagination for my taste. It is a material that should be banished from professional wrestling seamstresses.
This match is awesome. Angle explodes with amateur takedowns. He does a snap fireman's carry takeover. This opening sequence is crazy. I'm like, I forgot dare I say, I took for granted how special Kurt Angle is. You see like moments like this where like he takes a guy like John Cena and he's doing all of this amateur wrestling around him. It was just so cool.
I think one of the things that I, as we go through it, we'll talk about that I enjoyed most about this match is that think back on almost all of the Kurt Angle matches that we've reviewed on this podcast. They're almost all Kurt Angle against a guy who was already a legend, who was already a top wrestler in the world. Here we have Kurt Angle, who, lest we forget, is like 4 years into his pro wrestling career at this point, and he's the guy leading John Cena through this match. Like when I'm watching this, the main thing I'm thinking is that I cannot think of another wrestler besides Kurt Angle that only went through the WWE system that was at the level that early on in his career of all the guys that you think of, the masters that, you know, started in Stampede and went to Japan and went to Mexico. You think of the Guerreros, the Malenkos, the Benoits, the Jerichos, you know, Dynamite Kid, all down the line of those sorts of wrestlers. Angle's the only guy that ever only went through the WWE system that got to that level, and he's at that level here 4 years into his career.
Yeah, what a treat it is to see Kurt Angle wrestle here. And as they're wrestling, we get a pound and ground reference from Michael Cole describing Cena's offense.
I take my first H2O shot of the show.
Cena,
we get that pound and ground, or grounded, yeah, pound and ground.
It was
that's
pound
right,
and ground.
He misheard a UFC reference of ground and pound from Taz. You know, at some point during their commentary tandem, it became pound and ground.
Cena comes off the top, and Angle hits a low drop kick to the knee, and this looked terrifying and dangerous. Cena is lucky to not have gotten hurt on this move.
Yeah, this was not the plan. I don't think the plan was to hit the counter drop kick to the knee like that, but it made for more drama. But it was one of those things that you could very easily be, just exploding all tendons and dislocating a kneecap for sure.
Cena hits a DDT on the ring apron. He hits a buckle bomb during this match. He goes for the FU, which would be the future attitude adjustment. But Angle kicks out at 2. Angle hits an Angle slam. And Cena kicks out of the Angle slam. That was a great near fall, big pop from the crowd. Cena goes to get his chain that he wears around his neck. He goes to get the chain to use it as a weapon, but the ref takes the chain away. But Cena, as the ref takes the chain away, pulls Angle's medals out of his pocket, and he hits Angle with the medals, but Angle kicks out at 2, and everyone totally bought this as a finish, including this guy watching this match. It was, just super fun.
Great near fall, and it was the type of deal where early on in the match, fans were not buying into the near falls,
No.
and as we go along, particularly after Cena kicked out of the Angle slam, the people were buying it. Another sort of we always like to chart the weirdness of like WWE speak or Vince edicts or doctrines at any given time. This is a very brief window in the last like 25 years where the announcers are allowed to say the referees' names. We hear it throughout the show here. They say referee Jimmy Corderas instead of the official. They're allowed to call them referees, and they're allowed to call them by their actual names.
Angle counters another FU attempt into a victory roll that Angle then transitions to an ankle lock, and he gets the submission victory. This was awesome. It marks John Cena's 3rd straight pay-per-view bout where he's faced a member of SmackDown roster's Big 3 of Angle, Lesnar, and Undertaker. And he lost cleanly to their finishing move in all 3 of those matches. Here, this was 18 minutes, 25 seconds, an awesome match. It flew by, and this was in a death spot after the Vince and Stephanie match. So, like, the crowd was going nuts for that match towards the end there. They had come down. This was just a tough spot to be in. They put these guys in here, and they willed these people back into this match, and it was the match of the night for me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I thought Cena, particularly by the standards of 03 John Cena, looked great here. But you know, we've had a lot of Kurt Angle matches on the podcast, and there have been better matches. But I would say that this is the most impressive Kurt Angle performance that we've seen yet, because again, he's only 4 years into his career, and he's in there with a guy who, while had a ton of charisma, was still very limited, both in terms of in-ring and connection to the crowd compared to what he would be a few years later. And they just knocked it out of the park, and Angle guided him through this match.
Absolutely. And it was tremendous to see Kurt Angle do this. It reminded me of that match on Raw where they brought back Marty Jannetty as a funny joke, and then he had a match with Kurt Angle, and he looked so good in that match he got a contract, and then everyone was like, oh, whoops, it's because he was in there with Angle.
I believe it was Raw, or maybe it was SmackDown. And remember, there was also one of those with Tatanka.
Sure.
Where he got Tatanka a deal, and for a good 6 months or so, got some WWE contracts or paychecks he wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
So funny. Yeah. Josh Matthews I'm sorry, we're not there yet. Okay, we'll get there.
We don't ever have to get there with Josh Matthews. We can skip him.
We see a video package of Eddie Guerrero spraying sewage on the Big Show. The Big Show power bombing Eddie on a truck. He's choke slamming him on a truck.
They did not need to go that hard to get to this match. So we talked about the spraying of the sewage. That's whatever. That's WWE. Big Show's revenge, his retribution. He attacks Eddie Guerrero on SmackDown. He throws Eddie onto the windshield of Eddie's own lowrider, power bombs him on the hood, choke slams him on the roof. Eddie Guerrero's back is a bloody mess from going first through the glass, then the hood, then the roof. He looks like his back looks more like the result of a Nick Gage match than an Angle with the Big Show. They did not need to go this hard.
We go to the ring. The United States Championship on the line. The challenger is the Big Show. The U.S. champion is Eddie Guerrero. The story of this match is Big Show's dominating. Eddie was hurt by this attack on SmackDown. Eddie keeps trying to find ways to cheat without the referee seeing it. But alas, the Big Show wins with a choke slam. He's the new U.S. champion. Not a ton to say about this match.
It was fine. Again, the thing that was just so distracting was seeing all these fresh wounds still on Eddie's back, oozing blood throughout. But yeah, it just kind of had a weird vibe. It never really got going. And then, like you said, Big Show won, and that was that.
Josh Matthews catches up with the Big Show in the back. He took the title, and he says he took Eddie's masculinity.
That feels like
he did not.
He did not. It just feels like another weird Vince line.
And we go to the main event of this show, the WWE Championship, in a biker chain match, which we still did not know the rules. Leading into this pay-per-view on SmackDown or anything, they did not talk about what the rules of a biker chain match were going to be. It turned out to be a chain on a pole match.
This is what I referenced earlier. Maybe this was during those 2 weeks where Vince Russo was brought back to write TV. It's not Judy Bagwell up there, but it is a chain.
The challenger is The Undertaker, the WWE champion, Brock Lesnar. We get an awesome video package of Brock killing dudes. I could watch this all day. This was tons of fun.
Including throwing Zach Gowen down the stairs. We referenced that earlier during the Zach Gowen match.
The rules are simple, we're told. The first wrestler to get the chain can use it on his opponent. Which every time I hear that, I always think, well, can the second man use it, or is he not allowed?
Yeah, can he only defend? Is he on the penalty kill at this point?
Yeah, it's always anyone can use the chain, but the way they always explain it drives me nuts. That only the first man that gets it should be allowed to use it, but based on how it's explained, but it's really you have the first opportunity to use it.
It's also dumb because it's no disqualification. So couldn't you just bring your own chain?
BYOC.
Yeah, BYOC and just undercut the whole step.
But it's hard to find a biker chain.
Yeah, that's true. Biker chains are very different from other chains. Very different from a Russian chain.
That's right.
It's I also we did not have it happen in this. We'll just do a spoiler alert. I was hoping that at some point during this, because the chain is or the pole's like 90 feet tall.
Way too tall. There was no way Brock was going to get this chain. There's no way.
I was hoping that Brock would get mad, go out to the floor, and just rip the pole off the post and then beat Taker with the chain wrapped around the pole. We did not have that happen, unfortunately.
Biker Taker comes out first.
With this horrible "you done it now" entrance music. My God, is that hideous.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when your rights to use Limp Bizkit have expired and you have to write your own crappy version. Here,
I believe Undertaker wrote that himself.
Terrible song. Brock comes out and he immediately starts the match by beating Taker down in the corner. Lesnar misses a charge in the corner and Taker starts working over the shoulder of Brock. Taker with the old school. He does the rope walk and strikes across Brock's shoulder. They're fighting outside the ring. And then Taker gets thrown knee first into the steps.
One of the classic every big match WWF spots from this era is someone, usually Taker, getting thrown 90 miles an hour into those steps, knees first.
Back inside, we get a fisherman suplex by Brock. Taker misses the high boot in the corner. More brawling outside. They go back inside. Taker hits his leaping clothesline and gets a 2 count. 0 people in the building believe that the match will end before the chain is used. I don't know why you're bothering with a near fall.
Yeah, the crowd is very quiet for all of this. There are some missteps early in this match. Like, so we had that video package just showing, them killing each other, this huge feud. It's a chain on a pole match, and Undertaker's out here doing Mahistral cradles.
He did one. That's insane.
Such a weird era of the Undertaker. The other thing that I noted early on, and we'll see it throughout, and this might be blasphemy to say, and maybe it was just an off night, there's a lot of revisionist history and rose-colored glasses about how good Brock Lesnar really was early on in his career. Brock Lesnar was an incredible athlete with an incredible look and could do some really cool athletic things. But, man, in a match like this, particularly with a guy like Taker rather than a guy like a Benoit or an Angle, he is lost at times. Like, when he's on offense, he doesn't know what to do. He just throws a lot of kicks, a lot of forearms. There are a lot of things in this match, particularly with Brock on offense, where it just leads to nothing and it feels like it's killing time until Taker gets back on offense.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. This was a very different pace to everything else here. Oh,
they had about 10 minutes of match that they were attempting to stretch out into like what felt like a 25-minute bag.
Yes, this felt completely the opposite of the Cena Angle match that I was like, wow, that went 18 minutes. Holy cow.
How long does this one go? Do you have that? If not, I'll look it up.
No, I don't know how long it ended up going, but man, it felt like it was at least 28 minutes. Minimum, it felt like 28 minutes.
Yes.
So Taker actually hits a hot shot, but instead of going throat first, Lesnar gets hung up stomach first over the top rope. Taker starts to climb for the chain, and then the lights go out. And then Taker got down as the lights came back on, and nothing happened.
Yeah, what was this? So there was just a power outage?
No, this was like the distraction by the guys who are gonna run out later, and Vince and everybody everyone's trying to keep Taker from getting the
but
chain
they just
first.
They just repeated the same spot right after the lights went out before it went out. So I don't know. This was bad.
Lesnar hits a big power slam on Taker. Lesnar throws the ring steps into the ring. Lesnar does a drop toe hold, sending Taker face first into the steps inside the ring. Lesnar clotheslined over the top rope to the floor.
He tries to take an Angle style bump where we've talked about before. Kurt Angle, and he gets clotheslined over the top. in full speed, it looks like the most terrifying thing ever. When you slow it down, it's the safest over the top rope bump you've ever seen. Here with Lesnar, it just is actually dangerous as hell. He has not mastered that angle bump yet.
Outside the ring, Taker hits, you talked about a terrifying move here. This is an ugly pile driver on the bottom part of the ring steps.
Yeah, it did not look like Brock had any idea how to safely take this.
Taker climbs up for the chain again, but Lesnar cuts him off this time. Taker is on Lesnar's shoulders. Undertaker with a head scissors that they call a triangle choke. Okay.
I mean, this is in the era of Taker pretending to be an MMA fighter, but you probably could have fit like Rey Mysterio through the daylight between Taker's legs and the head of Brock Lesnar.
It was just the head. He didn't have the arm captured at all, which makes it not a triangle choke.
No, very true.
This was a head scissors. You get a desperation low blow by Lesnar. Lesnar hits Taker with the steps for a long 2 count. Again, nobody reacts because they know that the chain has to come into play before this match is going to end. Taker kicks the steps into the head of Lesnar. Taker throws the steps at Brock. He misses, and the steps fall to the outside. This Lesnar now starts to climb up himself. Taker cuts him off with a last ride powerbomb, but Lesnar slips behind, and they both clothesline each other. Both men are down.
Yeah, again, like it's fine, but the action here does not feel like the main event of a pay-per-view. And if you're familiar with other Brock Lesnar versus Undertaker matches, this isn't anywhere near that level, whether it be the drama or just the in-ring work, particularly of Brock. And to your point, the chain actively, the stipulation actively is hurting the match, because once they get the chain, okay, so someone clotheslines a guy with the chain, like nothing that cool is going to happen. But the fact that no one's gotten the chain yet negates all of the drama they're trying to build throughout. It really is not working.
Taker's in control, hits the snake eyes in the corner. Taker goes for the choke slam, but Lesnar slips behind, he hits a spine buster. Undertaker puts on an actual triangle choke this time.
Well, an actual triangle choke that still looks terrible. You still could have slipped Rey Mysterio between where the legs were and where the head is.
Lesnar powers out by picking up Undertaker and powerbombing his way free. This was the highlight of the match for me. Absolute freaky strength, and should have got a bigger reaction than it did. This was wildly impressive. The Undertaker's a gigantic person for him to be doing this one-armed.
Yeah, it made me want to see Brock Lesnar and peak Davey Boy Smith with a one-arm lift like that.
Lesnar hits the F5. 2 count as Taker got his foot on the bottom rope.
You're slipping past Taker's horrendous dragon sleeper.
Oh, that's right.
Talk about Davey Boy Smith. This is the Davey Boy Smith sharpshooter of dragon sleepers. People talk about Sonata's dragon sleeper skull end. Talk about daylight. Sonata looks like Tatsumi Fujinami compared to Undertaker here.
I like the Davey Boy Smith reference, taking us all the way back to season 1, episode 1 of this podcast on the free feed. If you haven't listened to us describe the worst sharpshooter that we've ever seen, Davey Boy Smith putting it on Diesel at the time. So go back to season 1, episode 1. It's all there for you in the free feed. So Brock climbs for the chain. Taker cuts him off. Choke slams him off the top rope. Taker goes for the chain. He's climbing up, but Nunzio, Johnny the Bull, and Chuck Palumbo, this version of the full-blooded Italians, the FBI hit the ring.
If you gave me 1,000 guesses as to who would run in on the show in the main event, I would not have guessed any of Chuck Palumbo, Little Guido, or Johnny the Bull. I'm just thrilled that like 3 years later, Johnny the Bull's urethra has healed from that springboard leg drop to the floor onto a chair on a late stage WCW Monday Nitro. But what the hell is this? And also, this would have been so much more entertaining if it was Tommy Rich and Big Sal E. Graziano coming out.
Did you get a time on this match? Did we get a
I
time?
did. 24 minutes and 14 seconds. This is only 6 minutes longer than that Kurt Angle John Cena match. It feels 6 days longer.
Taker tosses all of them outside the ring. He then hits the last ride power bomb, and then Taker does a huge dive over the top rope, wiping out the FBI on the outside.
The no hands tope, that wasn't it at WrestleMania against Shawn one of those years where he did that and knocked himself out. Here he's got enough guys to catch him that he's okay.
Nunzio tries to get the chain, but Taker cuts him off. Taker grabs the chain, he pulls it down, but Mr. McMahon hits the ring, knocks Undertaker off the top rope. Lesnar gets the chain. He punches Taker in the face with the chain, gets the pin. Still champion, Brock Lesnar, as Vince runs away. Oh, I did have it in my notes. 24 minutes, 17 seconds of ring time. Whew.
I felt every single one of those seconds. I struggle to imagine in my mind's eye a worse Brock Lesnar Undertaker match and finish than that could have been constructed beyond this. Like, this was not good. This was not entertaining. It dragged. It meandered. It had a lame finish. It felt more like a elongated Raw main event than a pay-per-view main event, particularly given what we had already seen with the emotional spectacle of Vince and Stephanie, and then the great pro wrestling match that we just had prior to this with Kurt Angle and John Cena.
I looked it up, and apparently the booking made sense for where they were trying to go, as Vince screws The Undertaker here to build for a planned Buried Alive match as the main event of Survivor Series between Vince and Undertaker, which Survivor Series is the next pay-per-view after this. So,
and Vince he's wrestling all the time at this point.
This show ended up doing 250,000 buys, a 0.47 buy rate. Incredibly not good numbers for how well the other pay-per-views had been doing. So this one was a pretty big disappointment overall. But the randomizer chose...
It's probably an indictment on the Vince Stephanie thing and people not wanting to see a father beat the shit out of his daughter, because that was without a doubt, from the way this show is positioned, the way the video packages were positioned.
100%.
Well, that wasn't the main event. That was promoted going into it.
It was
as
a co-main event
on the show, the hook, the main event, and the show died a death by comparison, as you mentioned.
So the randomizer chose this one for us, and this is one of those, would have never gone back to watch this ever.
No.
Now I have another Kurt Angle's awesome reference point that I will use.
Yes.
Favorite thing on this show for you?
Without a doubt, it's the Kurt Angle, John Cena match for all the reasons that we described. Just a masterclass from Kurt Angle. Again, still so early on, relatively in his own career, guiding a green but super promising wrestler to a great match. In, like you said, a difficult spot on the card to get the crowd reaction that they ended up getting.
Honorable mention to the opener, the Cruiserweight Championship with Tajiri and Rey Mysterio. If that had a different finish, we'd be talking about how that was potentially a match of the night candidate as well.
Absolutely.
Worst thing on this show, plenty to choose from here.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how disappointing the Brock Lesnar Undertaker match was, and that's the main event. I would say if worst meant most terrifying thing on the show, it's without a doubt A-Train dropping Chris Benoit headfirst on that chair in the exact same manner that Chris Benoit broke Sabu's neck about a decade earlier. That was just terrifying.
Yeah, when it comes to the worst thing, it's by far this APA Basham Brothers match. This was terrible. The ref bump was horrible. Shaniqua's interference. Everything about this match sucked. Everyone had an off night, and it was terrible.
And then, like you said as well, the fact that this is what they stopped, contradicted, broke up, whatever you want to say, that long-running OVW storyline. This is what they did that for.
And with that, we're going to call it a podcast. This was fun. It's always good to go back and see what the randomizer is going to choose for us. We let you know every single week what the randomizer is going to choose for us on our social media, and that's a great place to interact with the show as well. We're available on all of the social media platforms at Wrestle at Random. That's on Threads, Blue Sky, on X, if you still call it Twitter. It's all there at Wrestle at Random. Make sure you're following us there to find out all the shows we're going to review. And we'll also tell you what we're going to review on the bonus feed as we do bonus content every single week over on our Patreon, patreon.com/wrestling at random. And that is weird stuff. It's stuff. We have a tier where you can be the randomizer and you can make intentionalized requests, and that's been dominating the Patreon right now. So our listeners have been requesting some awesome matches, shows, curated lists, etc., all over on the bonus feed. All of that is evergreen content, just like what you have right now in the free feed. You can go over to their patreon.com/wrestling at random, or you can click subscribe right in your Apple Podcast feed. That'll unlock all those episodes that are locked as labeled bonus content. It'll unlock them all for you. You can enjoy the entire back catalog of the podcast. And of course, the YouTube channel is the main place to interact with the show. We get all kinds of comments, and we love it, and we love talking to folks there as they go through the video version of the podcast. That's available over at if you go to youtube.com, search for Wrestling at Random Podcast, you'll be able to subscribe there, help us work the algorithm so other wrestling fans can find the show. So go ahead and that's free to do as well. Support the show by subscribing over at the YouTube channel. All the links I described, the entire back catalog of the free feed, everything is available at our website, wrestlingatrandom.com. And with that, we're going to call it a podcast. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Kurt Angle. And dare I say, thank you, Michael Cole, for not making my ears bleed once. Had a good performance, and I'll chalk that up to Taz helping him out. Good time, and yeah, looking forward to seeing what the randomizer will get. Will it be something we would have watched otherwise, would have sought out, or will it give us something really weird and random that in a million years we would have never watched? Tune in next week to find out.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk to you again